welcome back to another Star Wars Rebels episode review. My thoughts on tonight's episode of Star Wars Rebels titled Iron Squadron. And this was a fun little episode. Of course, I love seeing more of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And in this episode, I thought he was the most menacing he's been all season. From the way he allowed the rebels to take on the small amount of Empire ships, and his banter with Sato at the end, and showing that they have somewhat of a history, and the way he got without really threatening, but the way he was menacing towards Captain that Constantine dude, and the way that he's saying how he failed and how he let the rebels escape. And first of all, Constantine is one of the worst Imperial officers I've ever seen in Star Wars. So I don't know why he still has a job or is even alive at this point. So I really like this episode for what it was. Again, I love seeing more of Grand Admiral Thrawn and seeing his role in, allowing the rebels to win their battles, but at the same time, learning more about them. And he knows that eventually he's gonna, or at least he thinks he's gonna, end them and kill them all. And then that's what makes him such a great villain, is that he's not just being like, oh, I need to stop them and kill them right now. He has a plan. He's letting them have their battle. He's letting them think that they're winning. But then he knows deep down that, hey, I'm going to be the one who stops them. So that was just, again, seeing more of him is always good to me. And the Iron Squadron themselves in this episode, I thought were really immature. They really made Ezra look like the most mature character on the show. Just because, seeing Sato's nephew, Mark, and I understand they're young and they're immature and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's you have to understand, especially when you're, in a war, you can't just, sit around and expect you to be able to, win every single battle. So that's when Mark was so hesitant in leaving. He's like, oh, I'm not gonna escape. I'm not a runner and blah blah blah. It's dude, you realize you're risking your own life because you think you can win every single battle. And he's like, oh, there's a Star Destroyer. It's no, those aren't. You haven't even faced an actual Star Destroyer yet. That was not necessarily a bad thing in this episode, but it kind of took me out because it was really frustrating to see how immature he was being and how irresponsible he wasn't making his decisions. And I know, just seeing their team, the rest of his team, the rest of the Iron Squadron was more mature. Actually, had thought rationally more so than Mark, because Mark just kind of he wanted to be the leader, and he was the one making the irresponsible choices. One thing I liked about the Iron Squadron was their R3 droid, who kind of had the back and forth, kind of attitude thing going on between him and Chopper. I thought that was a cool thing to have. Let's see what else. And I like seeing the droids team up to disarm the mine that was placed on the ship placed on Mark's ship by the Imperial forces. And again, the space battles in this episode were great. And I loved having more history with Sato between Thrawn and Mark. Because Sato, I feel I think he's a little more of an underutilized character because he's not a main character, so we don't see as much of him as I would personally want. And because at first I'm okay, he just seems like he's a generic rebel general. But now that I'm so invested in the show, it's I want to see more of him. And getting more history with him, it was really cool to see that, again, with Mark, as well as seeing somewhat of a history with Grand Admiral Thrawn, that obviously is going to be, brought up again at some point in the future. Again, and then also I love kind of seeing Ezra kind of taking more of the leadership role in this episode, because you guys have, if you guys have been watching my videos, you guys know I haven't always been the biggest fan of Ezra, because he's very, I don't know, I haven't agreed with certain decisions that Ezra has made as a character in this show, and especially when it comes to him trusting Darth Maul and doing all the Sith training and stuff like that. But it's episodes like this, seeing him step up as a leader and having to be the mature one, and having to make the call of whether to not save Mark, and having to be the one to kind of step above all these younger kids, or who I essentially am calling kids, but they're teenagers or whatever. But seeing him take on that role, to me, that's what made him shine in this episode, at least to me. And I love the banter between him and Sabine in this episode, and I honestly thought this episode was fun. Furthered the story a little bit more, gave us more backstory with Sato and Thrawn, and yeah, we got to meet a new band of rebels with the Iron Squadron. While I don't necessarily love the Iron Squadron themselves yet, it means it's only been one episode, and they didn't have the best of introductions in my opinion. It was still a fun episode, and I enjoyed the character moments with Ezra, with seeing more of Sato's his backstory, and obviously seeing a lot more of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on tonight's episode. What were your guys' favorite moments? What did you guys like about it? Sound your thoughts in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for every TV show and movie and trailer review I upload on my channel. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, have a good one.